This week on the College Football Roundup, Indiana exposes Illinois. The end of an era is upon us. Michigan handles Nebraska, and so much more. This is the Monday Report, starting now. All right. Hello, everybody. It is Monday, September 22nd, 2025, and this is the Monday Report. I'm your host, H. James K., and today we are going to continue our weekly roundup of the events of the college football weekend that was. Today we are going to be talking about Indiana versus Illinois. We're going to be speaking for probably the last time about a certain select few really bad, disappointing teams. Then we're going to talk about Michigan's bout with Nebraska. Then, to wrap it up, I'm going to preview 3 games that are coming next week that I think are going to be interesting. Alright, let's do this thing. To start us off, let's talk about Indiana versus Illinois. So, at the beginning of the year, I had Illinois as one of those teams, much like last year, that was kind of in the middle of the Big Ten. And I thought they would be a team that you'd have to look out for, but they wouldn't have to be like, ooh, circle Illinois on your calendar. But for some reason that I just cannot fathom, everyone in the country convinced themselves that Illinois was a top 10 team. That they were a team in the Big Ten that you had to look out for. Like, seriously. Meanwhile, every week I'm like, why are they ranked so high? It makes no sense. I didn't even have Illinois ranked in my top 25 last week. And if I did, I had them at like 18, not 9. 9. And the reason why I'm kind of animated about this is because Curt Cignetti and the Indiana Hoosiers welcomed Illinois into their stadium and beat them 63-10. 63. It is the most points a Big Ten team ranked in the top 10 has ever surrendered in a single game. Ever. Well, in the modern era, I guess. There's always the occasional 87-0 game from 1904 or whatever. But the point stands. It was the kind of beatdown that just doesn't happen to serious teams. And I was both shocked and not shocked at the same time. Because I've never really bought into the hype of Illinois. But at the same time, 63-10. I mean, I don't think Illinois is spectacular, but they're not bad. 63, I mean, oh my God. Indiana fans, for the 12 of you out there who may or may not be listening, savor Curt Cignetti. Because if he takes Indiana to the playoffs next year, this year, I should say, he won't be at Indiana next year. No. He'll be at whatever high-profile Power 4 team fires their head coach and says, here's a Brinks truck. Come turn us into a playoff contender. Because Curt Cignetti is that guy. So enjoy him while you can, because this is the last time Indiana's going to be relevant for a long time. Just saying. All right. So this the real game itself. Fernando Mendoza is a bona fide Heisman candidate at this point. He went 21 of 23 for 267 yards, 5 touchdowns, no interceptions. 21 of 23 for 267 yards. Holy crap. He has 975 passing yards and 14 touchdowns on the year with no interception through 4 games. 4 games. He is on pace for like 3,900 yards. What am I saying? No, he's on pace for over like almost 4,000. Yeah, like 3,900 yards. It's an insane. It's just. Right? 3,900? No, what am I saying? 3,000. 975 times. Yeah, he's on the pace for almost 2,925 yards passing in the season. I don't know why I said 39. I'm dyslexic, so maybe that's it. Either way, he's also on pace for, 42 passing touchdowns. 2,900 yards and 42 touchdowns might get him into the conversation, when he's completing 89% of his throws every week. Every week, Fernando Mendoza is just dicing up teams. Now, in this game, I think part of that was due to the inflexibility of Illinois' defensive scheme. Illinois likes to have 4 big linemen and play man coverage. That's it. That's what they like to do. It's like they play defense like it's 2011. And they love man coverage. Well, here's the thing about man coverage. There are real easy ways to beat man coverage if you know what you're doing. And clearly, Curt Cignetti and Indiana know what they're doing because they diced up Illinois' defense just all day. Big, huge chunk. 21 passes for 267 yards and 5 touchdowns. 21 completions. That's crazy. That's absolutely nuts. That kind of output, and it isn't just that, it was this. No, it's every week. This is what they always do. It's just 20 completions for 70,000 yards. And 4 touchdowns, just for flavor. And it isn't that Illinois could have, how do they not see it? How could we have seen this coming? I don't know, they just do it every week. But Illinois just inflexibly kept running man coverage on defense over and over and over and over and over and over and over. And as a Michigan fan, I know what this is like. Because I remember the days of Don Brown getting absolutely mangled by Ryan Day's defenses at Ohio State. 63-38. 56-27. I remember those crossing routes all day. Just crossing route. Slant routes. Seam routes. Just all day. And eventually, you know how you stop that? You stop running man coverage. Do anything else. But Illinois' defense just inflexibly said, we're going to be in man coverage because that's what we do. Yeah, well, what you do is making sure you lose badly. And the problems aren't just Illinois' defense, which is its own thing, but Illinois' offense. They lacked rhythm, they weren't physical, which is crazy from a Brett Bielema coach team. And the other thing is, they were really undisciplined, and they just weren't efficient on third down. They went 2 of 11 on third down, which is just abysmal. That's just, you can't know, you don't win if you're 2 and 11 on third down. You can't win that way. So it's one of those where is it that Illinois is just incredibly over, because this Illinois team returned a ton of production. Luke Altmaier, experienced O-line, D-line, secondary, linebackers, running backs, wide receivers. They brought back a ton of people. They brought back the entire staff. This was a team that was supposed to be they were good last year, they're going to take the next step, and yet they're just on offense. I don't know, Illinois, what are you doing, man? How do you lose 63-10? You know what? Losing 56-31 like Purdue, that's what, against Notre Dame, that's whatever. 63-10, you just can't even excuse that. Because that means nothing went right. There was no positives. It's just throw the game tape away. We're not even going to look at it. We're just going to move on. Because there's nothing we can learn from that. This is crazy. So Indiana is a serious playoff contender until somebody beats them. I think we can just say that now, because they are that train is not slowing down. All right, now I have talked about Oklahoma State, Florida, and Clemson a lot so far in the last 4 weeks or 3 weeks of this series. So if I have my way, this is the last time I'm going to talk about these 3 teams. And I've been really leaning on this, but I want to do other segments. So this is going to be my last thoughts on Those teams, plus I'm also going to talk about Utah. So Florida lost to Miami 26-7. And that should have been a bigger score, but the refs mysteriously blew a play dead on that a Miami touchdown dead early because of quote-unquote forward progress having been stopped, even though the pile was continuously moving, and it pulled a touchdown off the board. And so this should have been bad. And mind you, Miami had more rushing yards than Florida had total offense. Florida had 32 yards of offense in the first half, and they had like 141 yards total in the game. 141, 143, somewhere in there. It's the kind of stat that is just a scathing indictment. Billy Napier is finished. He's finished. And it's sad because by all accounts, Billy Napier is a nice guy, and you can tell he cares about his players, but at some point you are what your record says you are, and you are mediocre. That's what Florida is. Florida is mediocre, and that's not. I don't enjoy saying that, you know. I don't like calling teams mediocre or this guy should get fired. I don't enjoy that, but I endeavor to call it like it is, and Florida is mediocre. They are just bad. This is the worst start to a season they've had since like 1986. Even the bad teams of like Jim McElwain and them, even they weren't 1-3. There's just no excuse for a team that is this talented. They're a talented team. There are good dudes on that roster. DJ Lagway is a highly touted quarterback recruit who has all the potential in the world, but clearly it ain't working. The team doesn't play well. They lack offensive cohesion, and they're just disappointing in all phases of the game. And that comes down to coaching. At some point, it has to come down to coaching. And here's the serious problem for Florida. They are 1-3. It is safe to wonder if they win another game this season. So here's the remainder of Florida's schedule. Florida plays Texas, Texas A&M, Mississippi State, Georgia, Kentucky, Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Florida State in that order. They play, I'm pretty sure, like 7 ranked teams of their 8 opponents. 7. I mean, maybe they win against Kentucky and go 2-10, but I wouldn't count on it. At that point, if they've lost against Texas, Texas A&M, Mississippi State, Georgia, they're now 1-7, and Billy Napier has been fired more than likely. So at 1-7 with a coach fired, I don't think they get up against Kentucky, and they just 1-11 is seriously on the table for Florida, and that. College football is better when teams like Nebraska, USC, Michigan, Florida are better. When old school blue bloods that brought a certain edge to the game are better. And Florida isn't that. And it ain't right. So my last word on Florida, fire Billy Napier. He can go back to being an excellent G5 coach because I think he's a great G5 coach. But much like Brady Hoke, at some point you get to a level where your skill level isn't enough. And Florida was it for Billy Napier. So he's going to get fired. He'll take a year off, and then he'll go get hired by Sam Houston or, I don't know, Appalachian State or something. And he'll go back to being a successful G5 coach. In the meantime, Florida will hire Curt Cignetti, and they'll win a national championship in like the first year. Oh, Curt Cignetti. I hope whoever hires him away from Indiana isn't in the Big Ten. Go hire him in the SEC or the Big 12 or the ACC. Just take him far, far away. I don't want him like coaching USC or Washington or, Penn State or some crazy good team with lots of resources that Michigan will have to play every year. If he wants to go win championships, go be in the SEC where Michigan only has to play you if they're in the playoffs, So Godspeed, Florida. I feel bad for Gators fans. I know what it's like to have a mediocre football team. I've been there. 2020 was awful. It was like week 1, hey, we got a quarterback. And then it was like, no, we don't. For the remainder of like 5 games or whatever of that season. All right, next, Oklahoma State. They lost to Tulsa. Tulsa being a G5 team by a score of 19-12. The Mike Gundy era is over. The team has quit, and it is time for the Cowboys to reboot the program and make a move towards future contention. There is no reason Oklahoma State shouldn't be dominating the Big 12. They got more resources than anybody. They should be owning the Big 12 now that the Sooners are gone, and now that Texas is gone. And yet, excuse me. I had a yawn out of nowhere. Wow. Yawn just snuck up on me. I'm sorry. Oklahoma State should be better than this. And it is clear when you watch them on the field, they don't even try. Like, it isn't that they're like bad, which they are bad. They are a low-skill team. But they don't even try. They are just going through the motions. And it begs the question, do they get another win? I don't think so. I mean, maybe because there are some easy games on their schedule, but I mean, holy crap, man. It is just, for those of you who don't know, the word loafing is when a player just takes a play off, when they're just, sitting there like a loaf. So many players are loafing at Oklahoma State whenever they play. A little bit of water. It's unacceptable. I mean, Mike Gundy had Oklahoma State in the Big 12 championship in like 2022, I think. This is a team that should be better than this, and they're just done. They're done. He's done. He's going through the motions, collecting a giant paycheck. He's got a huge buyout. Actually, no, he doesn't. He took a pay cut. Oh, yeah, he's totally done. Yeah, it's one of those things where it's run its course. He was great for a long time. He really put Oklahoma State on the map, but sun's getting real low. So it's time. And that's sad because, you hate to see guys get fired, but he needs to retire or get fired because this isn't working. He's stubborn. He doesn't change. He isn't firing people on his staff. Like he should have cleared out his whole staff last year. He didn't. I don't think he did, at least. It's the kind of thing where it's just, they should be better than this. And part of the why I'm upset about this one is I actually believed Gundy would turn it around in 2025. I had them predicted to be better. And it makes me look like a fool because they're so bad. They're so mediocre. And they don't even care that they're mediocre. They're just like, whatever. Season's almost over. It's not, but for them, the season's over. I feel betrayed. I was trusting them to make my predictions not look like I'm full of shit. And instead, I look like I am full of excrement. All right, and then moving on to another team with orange. That's 3 in a row that has orange as their colors. Clemson. They lost to Syracuse 34-21. And Syracuse, just real quick, their starting quarterback, Steve Angeli, who was having a great year, he tore his Achilles in the middle of the game. Tore his Achilles. So, yeah, he's done. He is done for the year. And even though Syracuse lost their QB up 24-14, they still scored 10 more points, and Clemson just never was able to do anything. The stat that blew my mind is the fact that, you know what, I'm going to do some research real quick because I want to make sure I get these stats correct, because the stat line I saw for their quarterback, Cade Klubnik, was like, what are you doing? Oklahoma State. Oh, these are ACC. There we go. ACC scores. Syracuse at Clemson. Box score. Cade Klubnik, Clemson starting QB, went 37 of 60 for 363 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick. I'm sorry. Who in their right mind thought it was wise for a quarterback to throw 60 fucking times? 60 times? Do you just not care about running the ball, controlling the line of scrimmage, imposing your will, being a good team? Because I remember the really good Clemson teams, they ran the ball well, they were really physical, they were a team that you'd go way back in black and blue. They'd throw the ball around with Trevor Lawrence, but they were physical. This team just isn't physical. 37 of 60 is just bad. And yeah, he threw for 363 yards, but still, he threw the ball 60 times to do it. Dabo needs to go somewhere else because he's a good coach. And the problem for Dabo at Clemson is that he's making $11 million a year. He's one of the highest paid, if not the highest paid coach in college football. He cannot be this bad at Clemson for that amount of money. So he needs to either resign and move on, or they need to buy him out and send him somewhere else because he needs to go rediscover his passion because he's got to embrace the portal. He's got to embrace paying players, modern roster construction and roster management. He's got to find those things, and he's got to rediscover that drive to win because it feels like all he wants to do is argue with the press. And the players just aren't responding to his coaching, and the play calling on both sides is just bad. It's just nothing is working. They recruit well enough to be good, and they're not. I like Dabo. He's a really religious dude. He's a family man, and he should be better than this. And instead, he's just disappointing. All right, and then finally, Utah. They lost to Texas Tech 34-10. This was a weird game that was close until it wasn't. Kyle Whittingham's time at Utah, with all the success he's had, is over. Yeah, without Cameron, what's his name, there for 70 bazillion years. I forget what their quarterback's name was. Cameron something. Cam something. I don't remember. But he perpetually injured. But when he was on the field, he was really good. And it's just they can't recruit a good QB, and they're not physical anymore. And excuse me, man. I'm recording this in the evening, so I'm a little tired. But even still, I'm sorry for all the yawning. They're just not recruiting good anymore, and they're not physical, and they make too many mistakes, and they're not disciplined, and they turn the ball over, and tons of turnovers in this Texas Tech game, fumbles and picks on both sides everywhere. And then somehow Texas Tech just pulled away and ran away with it in the second half, 34-10. They're a team that is known for being physical, but they're not physical. They're a team that was known for having pretty good QB play, all things considered. They play horrible, and they don't run the ball. Utah is 3. Now, admittedly, Utah is 3-1. I have no confidence in them being able to challenge for a conference title in the Big 12. I think they're one of the most fraudulent 3-1 teams in the country because they just don't do anything real well. And yeah, maybe they can scratch and claw to 6 or 7 wins, but they're not a contender, not even a little bit. And a lot of that is the fact that Kyle Whittingham is just, his time has passed him by. We've seen this a lot. Eventually, everyone, Joe Paterno should have retired 15 years before he did. He should have, because the last 15 years of his career just wasn't good. It wasn't good. So there comes a time when you got to know when to fold them. You got to know when to walk away from the job, because right now Whittingham is keeping things afloat. They're like Iowa. They're going to win 6 or 7 games and be ugly to watch and just kind of there. But if they want to win championships, they have to strive for more than that. Maybe they hire Kurt Cignetti. Please take him away from the Big Ten before he hurts all of us. But I think Whittingham will be. He won't get fired. There's no way they'll fire him. Utah loves him. He loves Utah. I think he might stay in the area after he retires, but I think he's going to retire at the end of the season. I genuinely believe that he is just going to walk away and say, you know what? I've had a good year. I've had a good career. It's been 21 seasons. It's time to walk away. All right, moving on from talking about sad stuff, let's talk about Michigan versus Nebraska. So this was a game that was predicted to be moderately scoring, and Michigan was favored by like 3.5, a little bit more than like home field, even though they were on the road. And Michigan physically dominated Nebraska. So Michigan ran the ball 36 times, I think, for like 286 yards, and they had a 75-yard touchdown, a 50-yard touchdown, a 37-yard touchdown, all on the ground. They ran the ball and 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 they ran the ball and then they ran the ball again. They said thank you, moved the chains, and then they ran the ball again. And Nebraska just couldn't do anything about it. They couldn't. Man, it's too late. I need to stop recording these things at like midnight on Sunday. Yeah, the peek behind the curtain. It's late. I'm tired. But Nebraska's defensive line, and especially their rush defense as just a whole, has serious issues. Anyone who runs against them has massive success. Michigan averaged 9 yards per carry. 8 or 9 yards. Justice Haynes has 537 rushing yards through 4 games. He's on a faster pace than Blake Corum was in Corum's like Heisman-worthy 2022 campaign before he tore his ACL. Think about that. Justice Haynes is just on a heater. If it wasn't for a penalty, he would have a 75-yard touchdown run in 3 straight games. He had one against Oklahoma, he had one against Nebraska, and he had one against Central that was taken away by a penalty. Nebraska's rush defense is a serious issue. They're too small on the D-line. Their secondary struggles with gap integrity. This is one of the problems with running a 3-3-5 defense. If you're not incredibly gap sound, you're going to get pushed around because you have to be smaller and faster, and it's just about creating chaos and line stunts and crazy blitzes and obscuring the picture and disguising coverage. A 3-3-5 is not a defense that can just line up with 4 down linemen and 3 linebackers and say, run the ball, I freaking dare you. They're not. It's a nickel defense. So you have to overcome the lack of physicality from the scheme with just pure athleticism and precision and execution. And when a 3-3-5 doesn't execute, it's like a turnstile. Trust me, I know. I went to the Michigan games in 2010 when Michigan was 108th out of like 113 teams in the country. There were so many fewer teams back then. Michigan's defense was so bad that even like mediocre G5 equivalent teams ran all over Michigan, threw the ball all over the yard. It was just Michigan had an undisciplined, poor technique 3-3-5 defense. So in Nebraska, kudos to them. They have a good pass defense. But having said that, they kept Michigan's pass game at bay. But there were some opportunities where Michigan could have thrown touchdowns. Like Samaj Morgan threw a touchdown, almost, but his ball was an absolute duck. And McCauley tripped on the 1 yard line, fell over on the 1 yard line before he could catch it. Tried to come back to it. And then later in the game, Bryce Underwood threw a ball to Channing Goodwin that should have been like a 25-yard touchdown, and it was dropped. Goodwin had multiple drops, so I may or may not talk about him later. I don't know. But there were passing touchdowns and opportunities for Michigan out there that just weren't. Or like the giant catch on the sideline from Donovan McCauley that if his foot lands a centimeter to his left, he's in bounds for like a 25-yard gain. But he was out of bounds, so it didn't matter. There were opportunities because Nebraska was having to sell out so hard to try to contain Michigan's run game that it left a lot of their DBs in an unfair situation where they had to like be on an island. And if you come up against a team like Ohio State that can run and throw the ball at an elite level, or Oregon or Penn State, you are going to get diced up if you're Nebraska. It's going to be bad. Because what's going to happen is, they're not going to... No, Ohio State, maybe they don't throw for 280 yards and 4 touchdowns. Okay, maybe they threw for 220 and they run for 280 yards. Okay, you still lost 49-6. What? So Nebraska's defense has got to sort some stuff out because they're not physical enough in the run game. They're not disciplined enough in the run game, and they just get pushed around. And it allowed Michigan to play their game when everyone knows you have got to establish. If you want to beat Michigan, you have got to make Michigan chase you. You got to get out on them early and stay that way and force Michigan to get out of tendency and have to throw their way back into a game. Oklahoma did that 2 weeks ago, jumped all over Michigan from the onset, and Michigan never recovered. If you let Michigan get out in front of you, it's over because they're going to say, fine, we're going to drown you under a barrage of run plays, running until you're fucking bleeding out of your ears from getting your head knocked around so much because all they're doing is running right at your forehead over and over and over. Nebraska's defense has got some serious issues. And that's not the total issues. Their tackles on offense, their right tackle and left tackle, are in serious trouble. Derek Moore and Jayshon Barham are great defensive linemen. They're great edge rushers. They're great pass rushers. But they're not Mason Graham. They're not Kenneth Grant. They're not Aiden Hutchinson or Mozzie Smith or any of the NFL quality defensive linemen Michigan has ever put in the league in the last 5 years. They're none of those guys. And yet, Jayshon Barham, who I think he's probably going to be a first-round pick, but maybe he's a second-round pick. It's early in the year. But still, they're not Aiden Hutchinson. And they made Nebraska's tackles look like little boys on multiple occasions. Maybe Raiola's going to scramble, but he's going to scramble forward, not side to side because, we're parking his tackles behind him. And yes, Raiola escaped a couple of sacks. He still got sacked 7 times. Should have been 10, but he ran out a couple of them. So, Nebraska has physicality issues in the trenches that ultimately doomed them because the game was 30-27, Michigan. Michigan should have won this game 34-10 because if it wasn't for poor clock management, Nebraska doesn't throw a Hail Mary that gets them 17-7. 17-17. Okay. That's one. That's one touchdown that probably shouldn't happen if Michigan doesn't do a stupid mental error. And Braden Hillman gets a crazy personal foul, taunting or whatever, in the fourth quarter after Michigan got a stop on a 4th and 7, on a 3rd and 16 or whatever. Okay. Nebraska then went immediately down the field and scored a touchdown to make it to get a field goal to make it 27-20. Those two things right there, those two small mental errors are what kept Nebraska in the game. Because Michigan, as much as Nebraska fans will want you to believe that, they outplayed Michigan. Michigan did exactly what they wanted to do. Their whole thing is, if we just bully you enough, eventually we're going to win. We might win 15-14, but we're going to win, So, Michigan dropped multiple touchdowns and multiple missed opportunities. That game could have easily been 34-10, and it just wasn't because Michigan's kind of a young team, and they didn't have Sharon Moore, so game management was kind of an issue. I like Biff, but he's not a head coaching material. He's a great assistant coach, but he should have called a timeout on that 4th down in the first half. Instead, he let the ball run down to 1 second. Matt Rule, the Nebraska coach, called a timeout, and they threw a 50-yard Hail Mary that was an absolute masterpiece of offense. It was super impressive. And I'll get to some Nebraska positives in a second, but I want to kind of keep finishing my thoughts. And it's one of these things where this game, Nebraska is lucky that they got 20, that it was 30-27 or whatever. Yeah. No, wait, that Braden Hillman thing, that led to a touchdown. Yeah, because it was already 30-20. That got it to 30-27 or something like that. So yeah, it was even worse. Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So maybe Michigan wins 34-13 if it's not for those two mental errors that give Nebraska a chance to get a touchdown. So the game could have been way worse. And this is in spite of the fact that Dylan Raiola is a great QB. Dane Key is a great running back, is a great wide receiver. You've got that Lindermeyer, I think is what his name is, or Lindemann, Luke Lindermeyer, I think is what his name is. He was great tight end. You've got Dylan Edwards. I think his name is Dylan Edwards. No, Emmett something. Emmett, the starting running back of Nebraska. Really talented guy. This Nebraska team is a good team. They're going to win 8 games this year. I would almost guarantee they win 8 games this year because they got a good schedule, and Dylan Raiola is a great QB. Now, he needs to stop imitating Patrick Mahomes and be his own QB because the Mahomes look and the sunglasses and the hand motions and the throwing motions, all of it, it's got to stop. Be your own dude. Stop trying to be Patty Mahomes because you're not Patrick Mahomes. Because honestly, even with 300 yards, if Patrick Mahomes had been playing, they probably would have beat Michigan because there were certain times where it's like, stop trying to wait for someone to come open. Run the ball, run away, throw the ball away, live to fight another day instead of taking 7 sacks. So Raiola, who is only a sophomore, a true sophomore, he's got some growing up to do, but that kid is gonna be deadly. He is so good. I was so impressed with his arm strength and his accuracy and his ability to see the field, even though he did struggle with the pass rush. So, now let's talk about Michigan. Michigan's defense worked exactly as it's designed. Now, I know what people are going to say. Oh, Michigan allowed too many passing yards. Yep. That's a feature, not a bug. Here's the thing. In order to get those 308 passing yards that Raiola got, he had to go 31 of 40. He had to throw the ball 40 times. Michigan is more than willing to let you throw the ball 40 times and go up and down the field between the 20s if it keeps you off the scoreboard and prevents big plays. That's the whole deal. Michigan's going to prevent you from running the ball and getting explosive plays, so you're going to have to dink and dunk and dink and dunk your way along 12 play drives that ultimately bog down in the red zone and make you kick a field goal. That's the entire philosophy of Michigan's defense. Now, Wink Martindale likes to do a little bit more pressure than Jesse Minter or Mike McDonald did, but the theory still applies. Michigan is totally okay with you getting 300 yards passing, even if it means you take a long time to do it and don't win the game. Excuse me, I just burped. Oof. This is what happens when you have pizza at 11:30 or whatever, 9:45 or whenever that was. Anyway, Michigan's defense allowed C.J. Stroud to do basically whatever he wanted in the pass game between the 20s. But in the red zone, it was clamps, lockdown, no-fly zone. And that's the idea. It's a feature, not a bug. You're not going to run crossing routes and get 60-yard touchdowns. You're not going to run the ball well. You're going to have to do it with 6- and 7-yard pass plays over and over and over and over and over. All the way down the field. And yes, you might bust off a big play here and there, but you won't get it all the time. Especially if your offense is relying on like 40-yard pass plays. I'm sorry, you're not going to win. That's Michigan's defensive philosophy. And they're real good at it. On the offensive side of the field, Michigan's rushing attack is way ahead of the passing attack. But that's okay. You don't have to throw the ball well if you can get 286 yards and like 3 or 4 rushing touchdowns on the ground. That's whatever. Who cares? You know, it's like, I don't know. It's just, okay, cool. It was one of those things where it's like, yeah, cool, bet. All right, I'm cool with getting 108 passing yards if we're gonna get almost 300 on the ground. Cool, we can do that for a year and then flip the script to be better at passing next year. Because this is the thing, Bryce Underwood is young. He's a freshman. He's like 18 years old in 1 month. So, 18 years old and 1 month. And he's so immensely talented. He's got such poise and command on the field. But he's still a kid, and he's still learning. And we don't need him to be Superman. This isn't like some bad team that like, oh my God, he's going to be our savior. Yeah, we think he's going to be the offensive savior, but that's down the road. We don't need him to do it like now. We need him to like not turn the ball over and not fumble and not take sacks and just keep the offense working. That's all he's got to do. So from that perspective, yeah, Michigan's passing offense can take its time developing and get it right and really grow into a functional offense that's not just, Bryce Underwood going, oh, well, Channing Goodwin's down there somewhere, yeet, and throwing the ball 40 yards down the field for an interception because he's not paying attention or he's being forced to do things he's not capable of doing. So I'm okay with it's time. We got to be patient with the passing game. Now, the wide receiver room, on the other hand, Ron Bellamy has got to go. Michigan needs a new wide receivers coach because the receivers aren't better. Roman Wilson should have been a 1,000-yard receiver, and he wasn't. He just wasn't. Donovan McCulley should be an animal. He's not. Samaj Morgan is super athletic. He's just okay. Channing Goodwin needs no more starts. Put Andrew Marsh in, the true freshman. I don't care if he ran the wrong freaking route against Central Michigan. At least he doesn't drop the ball twice every game. Michigan had 8 drops against Nebraska. 8! Unacceptably bad. And Channing Goodwin had 2 of them. And one of them was an easy touchdown. An absolute dime from freaking Bryce Underwood. And the other one was a screen pass. It should have been caught. Yes, it was behind him and he had to kind of bend down to get it. He still should have freaking caught it. Channing Goodwin, it's just, I get it, he's athletic and he can block, but we need more. Michigan needs more production from the wide receiver position. Right now, the best pass catchers are Justice Haynes, Jordan Marshall, and Marlon Klein. Running back, tight end. Excuse me? What are we doing? What are you doing? So Michigan needs a new wide receivers coach because the production from the wide receivers isn't enough. It's just not enough. They're not winning enough routes. They're not winning enough snaps. Yes, they run the ball well, and yes, I'll give you this. Ron Bellamy is one of Michigan's best recruiters. Maybe you don't fire him. Maybe you say, well, you're going to be our recruiting coordinator from now on or something. But Michigan needs a new wide receivers coach desperately. From a 1,000-point view, looking at this game and the sum total of Michigan's first third of the schedule, 2025 is not going to be the year that Michigan wins anything. They're not going to win the Big Ten. They're probably not going to go to the playoff. Maybe they go to the playoff, but they're not going to win a playoff game. 2026, though, that might be the year. And if not 26, it'll definitely be 27. It's that 3-year building slowly kind of thing because Michigan is dangerous now, but they need to get better pass catchers. So, okay, in 26, you've gone and attacked the portal really hard and gotten pass catchers. Okay, but now everyone needs to gel for a year. And then in 27, maybe that's when the year like it all clicks and you've got 3rd year freaking Bryce Underwood and it's like, oh yeah, this is when it all happens. I can totally see that because that was kind of the J.J. McCarthy arc. He didn't have to start in year 1, but year 2 was admittedly a quantum leap in his production. And in year 3, he looked like a first-round draft pick QB, which he was. And yes, I think he's going to be a pretty decent QB. I don't know if he's going to be a starter quality guy in the NFL, but he'll be a high-quality backup. So, Bryce Underwood, this year, it's just about learning and not developing bad habits and developing an offense. Next year, that's when we start getting the pieces that are going to get Michigan over the hump. So the future is really bright for Michigan. Now, and for Nebraska, I like this team. I love Matt Rule. I think Matt Rule is a great coach. If Nebraska runs his ass out of town, they deserve to be bad for the end of time because he's a great coach. This is a guy, maybe you have to give him 6 years to get it figured out. But it took Harbaugh like 7 years to finally figure it out. 2015 to 2021. 21 was the year when it finally clicked. Like 6 years or whatever. So, patience with Nebraska. Because now, I will say no, Nebraska If Nebraska needs to do what Michigan did, which was, okay, at its core, what is Michigan football? Michigan football is run the ball, control the clock, control the trenches, play stifling defense. That is Michigan football from 1,000 foot away. What is Nebraska? Run the ball, physical, black shirt, bone-crushing defense. Run the ball, control the game, impose your will. Big imposing players. Nebraska needs to understand that if you want to win, you need to be who you are. And historically, especially under Tom Osborne, Nebraska was a team that would physically dominate you. They would run the ball well. They would physically impose their will on an opponent. I love the embracing Dylan Raiola. I love that. But you got to be what Nebraska needs to be, which is big, physical, tough, hard-nosed, knock your teeth out, black and blue, blood and guts football. That's what Nebraska needs to be, which means they need to radically alter everything about their strength and conditioning. No more 276-pound defensive tackles. No. 320-pound minimum. Big, fat dudes in the middle of your defensive line. Big, meaty, huge dudes who can clog up running lanes and impose their will, and big, run-stuffing dudes at the ends who can just push offensive linemen out of the way. That's what you need. And on the offensive line, you need the same thing. You need 320-pound motherfuckers who can just say, yeah, I know you're really highly regarded, but you're going to spend half of this game on your butt. And the other half is going to be spent on the sideline crying because I keep kicking your ass every play. That's what Nebraska needs to be. Run the ball, control the line of scrimmage, impose your freaking will. Be tough. Be Nebraska. They were called the black shirt defense for a reason. That's Nebraska football. So if they want to get back to where they want to be, winning championships and being feared, embrace what made Nebraska great. Physicality. Corn-fed, middle America shit. That's what Nebraska needs to be. All right. Next week, just a couple of games. We're kind of getting to that part of the season when there's less highly regarded matchups, but there are still some good ones. So, number 1, Ohio State is going to Washington. Now, last year, teams that went 2 time zones one way or the other usually lost. It's been a little better this year, but it's still a thing. Ohio State going to Washington. Now, this Washington team, I think, is pretty underrated. They've got DeMond Williams is a great running QB. Jed Fish is a great coach. If you had a sneaky dark horse upset, maybe it might be Washington, because that game, I can totally see Ohio State blowing them away, but if there was ever a game that was going to be that's the upset, it's Ohio State. It's that game. Because it just has all the makings of that's one of those games that could get kind of sticky in the middle. And, All right, another game, number 4 LSU at number 13 Ole Miss. Now is when we see if Brian Kelly's team is actually for real, or if they've just been banking off of playing shitty Clemson and shittier Florida. Because in hindsight, Clemson and Florida are both horrible teams. And that's 2 of LSU's marquee wins. So, now is when we see if LSU is for real. Because if they beat Ole Miss, okay, yeah, they're for real. But you ain't going to be able to do it 17-19. No. You're going to have to score some points on Lane Kiffin's team, because the Lane train ain't got no brakes. So, I love this Ole Miss team. I think they're really exciting on offense. Underrated kind of defense. So, this game, LSU at Ole Miss, watch out for that game. That game is going to be exciting. And then the last game I want to talk about, because Michigan is on a bye next week. So there's no Michigan game. Number 17 Alabama at number 5 Georgia. Now, I'm still not super sold on Georgia. I don't like their passing game. I think their offense is kind of disjointed. Tennessee totally choked last week. I think that was last week. Yeah, gosh, they're all blending together. In week 3, Alabama, but on the other hand, Alabama has some serious flaws. I know they've kind of righted the ship since early going, but this is going to be one of those measuring stick games where we'd say, okay, who's who? who is really about that life and who is just, It's going to be a great game because these two teams hate each other. If you can ever build a rivalry over like a decade, then yeah, Georgia versus Alabama. Now maybe that is a historic rivalry. I don't know, but I don't think it is. And man, there have been some exciting Alabama versus Georgia games in the last several years. So I'm excited for that one. Alrighty, so next week we're going to continue the roundup. Even though there's no Michigan game, I'll probably just have a different segment there before we go to the next week's segment. For those of you listening on Apple Podcasts and everywhere else that podcasts are available, thank you. I finally got my 10th subscriber on YouTube. Thank you. I don't know who you are. I don't know how to see that information. You used to be able to. I don't know how to do that anymore. Either way, whoever you are, who's the 10th subscriber, thank you, and thank you. For those of you watching on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell icon to get notifications. Leave a comment, please, to feed the algorithm. Spread the word, tell your friends and family so we can keep growing and reaching more people and share the love of sports and mainly football until February. All right. My name is H. James K. Thank you all for tuning in. Until next time.